Okay, I have to go without a camera today. Welcome, everybody. I'm just setting up the camera still. Without a microphone. I apologize. Oops, sorry about my hand. Okay, so welcome to a post-lockdown edition of The Stories Right Outside Your Door. I'm your host, Yoni Berg from Holster Mountain Tours, and we are allowed out. Thank God the numbers of infection are getting lower and lower, and we're able to go more than a kilometer outside of our house. So I decided to go out into nature so that we can see some beautiful things. One of the most beautiful things you could ever see is my lovely assistant today. Sarah, you want to come say hi? It's okay, you can put down the bag. Come, my sweetness. That's okay. I brought my Sarah with me so she can enjoy a little bit of outdoors. Come here. Here. Here she is. Say hi to everybody. We're live. They can all see you now. Hi, everybody. This is Miss Sarah. Mwah. Okay, she's doing Limida Merachok. If you want to stay in the shade a little bit, you can go right over there in the shade.
No.
Today we're going to be talking about David and Goliath. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite stories. And the reason that I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and the reason that my daughter is having trouble. Oh, Jordana wrote a message. She said, "Hi, Sarah. The reason we're having trouble getting to where we're going is because I wanted you to see this right behind me. This little dip. Oops. This little dip right behind me over here. That is a stream. It's a stream bed, actually. It's not a stream right now because there's no water in it, but it's a stream bed. Where is this stream bed located? It's located in the valley of Elah, in Emek HaElah. I'll get to why this is really cool in just a little bit. Okay? Before I start, I just want to remind everyone. Oh, Sapta says hi. She says, "Hi, Sarah. Good to see you." She wrote a message. Before I get started, I just want to say that I do have a YouTube channel that I would love it if everyone would subscribe to and spread the word so that more people will subscribe to it. These videos will be on the YouTube channel, as well as another video series I'm doing that's called Pop Culture and the Parsha, which is exactly what it sounds like. Every week I'm going to take that week's Parsha, that week's Torah portion, and I'm going to connect it to some aspect of pop culture. So subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can see all of those videos. And if you want to be informed of when I'm going to be posting all these videos, you can connect to my WhatsApp group. You can join my WhatsApp group. That lets everybody know when these videos are going to be going up on my YouTube channel. The main reason, come here, you. The main reason that I'm bringing my Sarah to do this video with me today is because I wanted to just point out Sarah's doing virtual learning. Sarah's doing virtual learning. She's doing learning from home, which means that we can do all of the learning with her, but she has a lot of time to get out of the house. She has a lot of time to go and do learning with her father, with her Abba, when we're not sitting at home in front of a computer screen. We can actually go and see the country. So if you guys are watching this video, chances are you want to see the country also. And it's nice seeing it on a video screen. I'm sure it is. But Sarah, is this better than being stuck at home? Yeah, this is better than being stuck at home. So I wanted to just let everybody know that you could be just like Sarah, and you can get out and see the country in a wide open space without fear of contracting anything from anybody because nobody else is around. If you go on a tour with me, I'd be happy to take you. Maybe Sarah can come with us if you go on a tour. Depends. We'll see. Mwah. All right, let me tell a story now, okay? Okay. If you're going to stay in the sun, keep your hat on. Okay, my sweetness? Here I am not following my own advice, just like Alice. Okay, so I'm here in the Elah Valley, in Emek HaElah. Beautiful, beautiful Emek HaElah. Quiet, pastoral. There are fields here where stuff grows, but in the middle of all the fields is this stream bed. In the wintertime, when it rains, this stream bed has water flowing through it. But right now, we're before all of the winter rains, aside from that half hour that we had in Jerusalem yesterday. But we're before the main winter rains, so there is no water in this stream. Why did I come here, and what does it have to do with David and Goliath, as it says here on the screen? It says David and Goliath. Well, right behind me, right over there, let me just turn the camera a little bit. A lot of underbrush, so it's hard to turn, but that mountain right over there that you're looking at now, that is Tel Azekah. It is the site of the biblical city of Azekah. Sorry, there's a lot of underbrush, so it's hard to keep the camera straight. I'm doing my best. Remember, I'm my own producer. Oh, Sarah, thank you. You can hold that straight. That would be great. That's the mountain of Tel Azekah. It's the site of the biblical city of Azekah. And Azekah is mentioned in the book of Samuel as one of the places to where the Philistine army had reached. The Philistines were up on the mountain ridge over there. The Israelite army was on a mountain ridge in front of me, which is behind you guys. I'm not going to turn the camera around because actually there's a large tree blocking the way right now. But the Israelite army was on a mountain ridge over there. And the battlefield where the two armies were supposed to have been fighting was right here, right where I'm standing. This was the planned battlefield between the Israelites and the Philistines. But the Philistines had an ace up their sleeve. They had a ringer. They had a guy named Goliath. Goliath was shesh amot vazaret, 6 amot and a zaret, according to the Bible, which raises the question: what is an amah in modern day measurements? What is an amah? And that's a matter of dispute amongst different commentators, of course, as most things are. Sarah, you can let go now. Thanks. It's a matter of dispute amongst commentators how long an amah is. About 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet. No one's really sure. Which means that Goliath could have been anywhere from 9 feet tall to 15 feet tall. The guy was enormous. Okay, let's go conservatively. 9 feet tall, enormous. And he comes walking down that mountain, standing in this valley. I don't know exactly where. He didn't drop a wallet or anything to let me know where he was standing. But somewhere in this valley, Goliath stood and he issued a challenge to the Israelite army. He said, why should there be mass casualties on both sides of a huge military clash? That's silly. Send out one person to fight me, and that'll decide it. If we win, then you'll be servants to us. But if you win, we'll be servants to you. This actually was something pretty common back in the day, that people did this all the time. Armies would choose a champion from each side, and they would fight it out in one-on-one combat instead of having a major military conflict. The problem was nobody wanted to fight Goliath. Goliath was a giant. The guy came out into the valley. The Bible talks about all the armor that he had on him. He was basically a walking tank. Trivia question. Thank you, Clara. What's a trivia question? Today's trivia question will be, what trivia question should I ask everybody today, Sarah?
I don't know what the trivia question.
Sarah doesn't know either. Today, the trivia question will be, from which tribe? Well, let's do that one. Yeah, from which tribe was King Saul? Not David, but King Saul. Okay, because we're going to be talking about King Saul in a moment.
Papa.
Yes, my sweetness.
Is it garbage?
Right here, I'll take it. I'll put it in my pocket. We'll throw it out when we get back to the car. Thank you. So, what happens? Goliath comes down, fully armored, holding a sword in one hand, a spear in the other hand. He has a guy whose job it is to carry his massive shield in front of him. And he issues this challenge. And nobody's taking this challenge. Everybody's too scared to take up this challenge. And this is embarrassing for King Saul. You have the whole Israelite army on the mountains behind you. You can't see them, but they're similar to the mountains over here. A little bit less foliage, a little bit fewer trees on the ones over there, but otherwise similar mountains, similar height to what you're seeing behind me. And this is embarrassing for King Saul. It's embarrassing because before we had a king, he's our first king. We've never had a king before. Before that, we were just a confederation of tribes that had a cultural / religious connection. But governmentally, militarily, we were not united. We didn't have a unified military until we had a king. King Saul comes along. He says, I'm going to make an army. I'm going to make us a unified nation. And as such, he drafts the best and the bravest of all of the tribes. And all these guys, the best and the bravest, none of them want to fight Goliath. They're all too scared. Saul starts giving incentives. He's like, okay, fine. Whoever fights him, he can marry my daughter. No takers. Nobody's interested. Nobody wants to fight. He says, fine. Whoever fights him, you never have to pay taxes of any kind ever for the rest of your life. Crickets. Nobody's answering. Nobody's taking him up on this. And this is really embarrassing for King Saul. Not only is it embarrassing for Saul, but it's getting boring for Goliath. He's coming down day after day after day, and no one is responding from the Israelite camp. Finally, David, who's not in the army, by the way, David happens to be visiting his brothers who are in the army. His father sent him with some provisions for his brothers, and he shows up. And the day that David shows up, Goliath issues his challenge yet again. And he says to the Israelite camp, he says, Ani cherafti hayom et malchot Yisrael, which translates into English as, well, there's one word that can't translate, but I'll do the rest of it. I have cherafti the armies of Israel. And I posted something about this week. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. We'll get to it in a second. What is that word, cherafti? I have cherafti the armies of Israel. What is cherafti? Best as we can figure, cherafti is biblical trash talk. It's a challenge and an insult all rolled into one. So basically what he was saying was, I challenge the armies of Israel, and the armies of Israel suck. Basically, like trash talk, you want to psych the other side out and get them to be overconfident and come out and fight you. And that's exactly what Goliath is trying to do. David hears this. He utters one of my favorite lines in all of the Bible. He says, Ki mi haplishti ha'arel hazeh she'echaref ma'arachot Elohim chayim. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he thinks he can challenge the armies of the living God? Now, for David, this wasn't merely a challenge of strength. This was a challenge against God's might, and David wasn't having that. This is unacceptable. And he went up to Saul and he said, I want to fight this guy. And Saul said, fine, you got it. It's a volunteer mission. There's nothing I can do to stop you. Here, take some armor, put it on, and go and fight him. David says, I don't want armor. I don't want this to look like your classic David and Goliath story. He didn't want to make it look like big soldier versus little soldier. He wanted it to look like blasphemer versus a defender of God's honor. So he went down without any armor. He went down wearing his regular shepherd's clothes and carrying his shepherd's staff because he was a shepherd. Remember, he was not in the army. He was not a soldier. So he's wearing his regular shepherd's clothes, and he goes down into the valley where I am now. And he comes right to the riverbed, right over here. This is why I wanted to film here. He comes to the riverbed, and he takes out 5 smooth stones from the river. And he tucks them into his robe, where he also has a sling. Not a slingshot, a sling. Yes, my darling. Sarah asks a very good question. There's the quote that I had posted earlier. Sarah asks a very good question. Were there thorns back in those days like there are here today? And if there were, how did he get by them? We're wearing shoes. Did David have shoes on? You know what? He probably didn't have shoes. That's a really good question, Sarah. Thank you very much. He didn't have shoes. He was wearing sandals probably. And there probably were thorns like they have here today. But he was probably used to walking through them because they didn't have sidewalks back in those days. So people were used to walking through areas where there were thorns. But just like over here where we walked, some of the thorns were kind of stepped on, so it wasn't so bad to walk on. So maybe he found a path that other people had walked on before, and it wasn't so bad to walk on it. Okay? Excellent question. Thank you, Sarah. So David comes down here. He gets 5 smooth stones. He tucks them in. Goliath is furious at seeing this. He wanted a soldier. And he says, why are you sending a boy with a stick to fight me like I'm some kind of a dog to be beaten with a stick? I want to fight. And David says, you are coming at me with your armor and your sword and your spear and your shield and all the things you've got. I'm coming at you with the name of God that you've offended. And I'm going to show everybody here today, not just the Philistines, but the Israelite army as well. I'm going to show everybody here that weapons don't decide battles. God decides battles. At this point, Goliath has had enough of the chit-chat. Hobbit feet. Yeah, maybe David had Hobbit feet. I'll show you the Hobbit, and it's about a bunch of guys that have feet that are really tough and they could walk on anything. Maybe David HaMelech had those kinds of feet also. So Goliath, 9 foot whatever, Goliath starts Sorry about that. Bit of a technical issue. Somebody tried calling. Obviously, it's one of the few people in the world who don't watch my videos. Tried to call me. So I apologize for the interruption, especially right now since we're at the apex of the story. So Goliath is charging at David. David takes one of the stones that he got from the riverbed over here, puts it in his sling, which remember is not a slingshot. It didn't pull back a rubber band and shoot it like a slingshot. It's a sling that's basically 2 strings, and in the middle of the strings is a cup. And he put the rock into the cup, and then he swung both strings over his head, and he let one of the strings go. Anytime you throw a stone at somebody else, you're going to cause some damage, obviously. But this is the hardest point on the human body, or at least one of the hardest points on the human body. It's really, really, it's sturdy. God is not foolish. He's a wonderful engineer, and he understood that the brain is incredibly important and it needs protection. And we are clumsy idiots, and we're going to be bumping our heads a lot. So God made this really, really hard. He made it basically like a helmet for the brain, to protect the brain.
What?
So when David threw that rock with the sling, it should have hit Goliath in the head, broke skin. There probably is going to be a lot of blood since head wounds cause a lot of blood. That's to be expected. But this was no ordinary throw. This was a throw on behalf of God's honor. So that not only did that rock lodge inside Goliath's skull, according to some opinions, it went through his iron helmet and then into his skull. Goliath takes a few more lumbering steps forward, because remember, he was running at the time. So he takes a couple more steps forward, and then he falls flat on his face. David runs up to him, grabs the sword out of Goliath's hand, and hacks off Goliath's head. He then picks up Goliath's head to show everyone that he has defeated the giant of the Philistines. And all of that happened right here. What does that have to do with the trivia question? Sarah, please let go of that. What does that have to do with the trivia question? The trivia question is, from what tribe was King Saul? Does that really matter? It actually does. You see, right when that happened, Saul knew David. King Saul knew David. He was a court musician at the time, and he was already best friends with King Saul's son, Jonathan. My namesake. Well, one of my namesakes. But now David really was getting on King Saul's radar, and he told his advisors and his generals, "I want you to look into this kid." Something freaked Saul out. Something freaked him out when he saw that David took down Goliath. And it wasn't just that an untrained shepherd just took down a 9-foot or 10-foot tall giant. It was the method that he used. He used a sling. Why is that important? And here's where the trivia question comes into play. From what tribe was King Saul? He was from the tribe of Benjamin. And that's important because if you look back in the book of Judges, there was actually a part of the book of Judges where there was a civil war amongst the tribes of Israel. All the tribes versus Benjamin. And Benjamin did a really good job of not being wiped out during that war. And one of the ways that they fought all of the other tribes so successfully was that they were known to be marksmen. These were the guys, these were the sharpshooters. They used, I don't know if they used bows and arrows, but they definitely used spears and they used slings. These were the weapons of the tribe of Benjamin. And when King Saul sees David go down into the valley and take a stone and use it in a sling, David's from the tribe of Judah. He's not the sharpshooter. I'm the sharpshooter, thinks King Saul. That should have been something I thought of. This is a giant. You can't take him on in one-on-one combat. So you take him away from it. You take him out from a distance. That should have been something that should have come to me, thinks King Saul. And he says, the fact that this kid thought about it and I didn't, that worries me. And as a true fan of The Godfather Part 2, because I'm sure that King Saul was a fan of The Godfather Part 2, because who isn't a fan of The Godfather Part 2? King Saul understood that you keep your friends close, but you keep your enemies closer. And he says, I want to keep an eye on this David kid. And this was the beginning of David's meteoric rise to power. I mean, he just rose in the ranks after this story to become a living legend. But that's a story for another time. But I wanted to tell you that because A, it's one of my favorite stories, the story of David and Goliath. Number one, it's one of my favorites because I love King David. Number two, I had to tell it out here because lockdown's over and I can go more than a kilometer from my house. So I wanted to go to this not only important place, but this gorgeous place. I mean, for God's sake, look at the beautiful puffy clouds in the sky. It's a gorgeous day.
I see a fish cloud.
Sarah sees a cloud that's shaped like a fish. She just said it looks like a fish.
Not really, over there.
It really does look like a fish. It looks like one of the Pepperidge Farm goldfish crackers. It's like a perfect fish cloud. It's pretty cool. Good call, Sarah. That's why I wanted to tell the story here today. I love the story. I love the spot. And I love my audience. I love my regular audience who watches me, but I love my special guest audience that I brought with me today. I'm happy she got to hear the story also and asked a couple of questions. Thank you for asking questions, Sarah. I appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, please contact me. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, whether it's about this video or if it's about any of my other videos, or if it's to arrange a tour. If you want to go on a tour of a place like this, I'm so happy to take you. Please let me know. Remember, please, to sign up to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can watch this video. If you missed the live, you want to watch it later, you can watch it on my YouTube channel. You can watch my other videos of pop culture and the Parsha on the YouTube channel. Just like now, I connected Godfather Part 2 to King Saul. That's exactly the kind of thing that I do on my YouTube channel, except I do it with the weekly Parsha, the weekly Torah portion. So subscribe so you can watch those videos. And Sarah is showing that we are now going to stop for lunch. We have a nice little lunch packed. We're going to stop for a nice little snack. So I got a date, guys. Thank you so much, Sharon. I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I have a wonderful lunch date that I got to get to. So until next time, thank you for watching.